whether someone says it or not. And the reason that a person, and that brought up something else that I wanted to mention, which was that I get a lot of times, let's see, the statement that, people saying, well, science is looked at as a religion, or there are people who make science their religion. And there are people who adhere to science, with a very authoritarian attitude. And I've heard this claim repeatedly. And while I can't say that I have never seen a person sort of cave to a scientific claim simply because it was a scientific claim, I have seen that. But I can certainly say that the number of people who claim that people do that is hugely, vastly larger than the number of people I've actually ever seen do that. So there's this small segment of people who think that if science puts it forward, it's unquestionable truth, whether it's a hypothesis or,
And oddly enough, those people aren't scientists, because one of the first things scientists realize is that there are no sacred topics. There are no unquestionable truths. The process of science is all about repeatedly questioning those truths to expand our knowledge. And there's nothing authoritarian. People don't accept evolution, and this drives me crazy because creationists seem to have some kind of, particularly the anti-evolution extreme creationists, folks like Ray Comfort or whatever, seem to have this idea that evolution is like some kind of global conspiracy, like Darwin popped up an idea and then some money changed hands under the table and we got it into the schools by, in order to indoctrinate, and you get these scientists to agree. The reason that scientists support evolutionary theory or acknowledge the fact of evolution has nothing to do with the fact that it came from Darwin or anybody else. As a matter of fact, the evolutionary model we use today is greatly different from anything that Darwin would have actually conceived. He caught his idea, his beautiful idea was natural selection, and that has applications outside of biology as well. But the evidence for the diversity of life through this process of natural selection is supported in all of the sciences that would be relevant to it. Whether it's geology. It could have been very much the case that when we discovered DNA, we could have discovered that this made the evolutionary theory impossible. It could have been the case that we discovered that within DNA there is something that prohibits this gradual change over time with natural selection. As a matter of fact, that's not the case. We discovered something completely new, and we find in it affirmation of the theory that we've been building, and it confirms that our understanding, while not complete, was at least correct, correct in the broader scheme, and we continually fine-tune
things that I mentioned in the article. And this is something else that I want to put forward. I can't imagine what it would take evolution is an observable mechanism. For a person to dispute that you cannot change, what is it, the xenotype? What's the phenotype? Phenotype of an animal. That you can't change the physical characteristics of an animal by selecting the breeding. We know that that can be done. We've done it. So it's doable. We know that there is a mechanism for changing the external physical features of this animal by selecting for specific genes. And
all the features of the animal, internal, external.
Yeah, when I say external, I mean it's just like we can see, we can observe.
Sure.
It is observable that you can change it. You can create a Great Dane or a Chihuahua within, using the same starting
And of course, the standard creationist response to that is, well, they're both dogs.
Okay, and the response to that, of course, is that we've seen evolution produce new species.
Yes.
So evolution breaks that barrier. We've observed it break that barrier. And know that it can produce new species. What happens is we have an observable mechanism, which is evolution, and we know that it can produce new species. We have never observed creationism, and creationism has never been observed to produce a new species. So when a person says to me, I think there are limits to what evolution can do, my response would be something like, maybe one day we will find a limit. But for now, there's not yet been a limit found. So what we what we have when a person says, I think that evolution can go this far but not this far, is a person who says, if you have a mechanism that creates a stalactite, you see that material, like minerals are dripping down from water, it creates the stalactite. And we measure it and it grows, let's say, 1.5 inches per year based on that drip. And there's other stalactites around it that are 3 feet long. The person who's putting the limit down is basically saying, although we have a mechanism that we understand that produces a stalactite, we know that mineral deposits dripping from this water can produce, a growth in a stalactite. We've only measured stalactites for the last 100 years. Let's just say, I don't know how long that's been, but let's say we've started measuring them and how they grow for like the last 100 years, and let's just say that we plug in that, the fastest growth we've ever seen is, 1/4 inch a year. And so these 3-foot ones, I just don't think that same mechanism can account for those. I don't think that mineral deposit in dripping water made a 3-foot stalactite. That's the same assertion. I don't think it's a fair assertion. I don't think people would make that assertion about a stalactite, and I don't know why they assert it for evolution. But you have a mechanism that can do what you need it to do in order to explain what you're looking at, and you have another mechanism that has never been observed. No one knows anything about it. No one can reproduce it. Nobody can study it. Nobody can verify it, and they've never seen it work. And yet, it's put forward, and people wonder why people don't hold creationism and evolution on par.
Yeah, and interestingly, among the young Earth creationists, they actually challenge the mechanism for the creation of stalactites and stalagmites as well, because it would require more time than the Earth has actually existed. They're on this 6,000 to 10,000 year old Earth scheme.
Yeah.
So these stalactites and stalagmites that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, kind of throw them a curve.
All that's doing is just taking evidence that's in your face and saying that I must refuse to accept this evidence because it conflicts with what I want to believe.
And I need to rework the data in order to match my preconceptions.
Yeah.